Have you ever walked into a room and felt the weight of every eye on you, not because you were loud, not because you demanded it, but because something about you spoke without words? For some, that presence seems natural. For the rest of us, it's forged in moments most people never see, the failures that sting, the nights you question yourself, the quiet decision to stand tall, even when your hands are shaking. The Stoics believed true strength wasn't about towering over others, but mastering the one battlefield that matters, yourself. And yet, in a world that moves fast and judges quicker, it's easy to lose that calm authority, to slip into chasing approval instead of commanding respect. We've all had times when we tried to show confidence and it felt forced, when we wanted to hold our ground but found our voice unsteady. What if you could shift that? Not by pretending to be untouchable, but by building an inner steadiness so real it can't be faked. The kind of presence that speaks before you open your mouth and lingers long after you've left. In the next few minutes, I'll share a few timeless principles that can help you navigate any situation with quiet power. Not to impress anyone, but to carry yourself in a way you won't need to explain. Stay with me. You might just see yourself differently by the end. 1. Body language. Have you ever stepped into a room and felt the air shift? Not because anyone said your name, but because every glance seemed to measure you before you'd even spoken a word. It is in these first silent seconds that people decide who they think you are. Sometimes, the judgment is wrong. But the Stoics would remind us, what others see in that moment is not determined by luck, nor by their opinion. It is shaped by how you choose to carry yourself long before you cross the threshold. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. Your posture, your gaze, the way you move, these are the colors your soul has been soaking in. They speak before you do, and they rarely lie. You cannot fake a steady presence for long. It must be built from within, through discipline and intention." Imagine a narrow street in ancient Athens. Merchants call out their wares, children weave through the crowd, and the city hums with its daily life. A man walks down that street. He is not the tallest among them, nor does he wear the most ornate robes, yet heads turn as he passes. His steps are measured, unhurried. His chin is level, neither raised in arrogance nor lowered in submission. His shoulders are set, his frame open, his gaze calm and unwavering. He pauses to speak to a vendor, and for that brief moment, it is as if the noise around them fades. What gives him this quiet command? Not wealth, not power, but the visible evidence of a mind that is not at war with itself. In our own time, many treat body language like a trick, something you practice in front of a mirror before an interview or a date. They think it's about striking poses, projecting an image. But the Stoic knows it is far deeper than that. Body language is not theater, it is philosophy made flesh. If your mind is restless, your stance will betray it. If your spirit is anchored, your posture will reveal it without effort. As Seneca warned, a man is not impressive because he stands on a mountain, but because he stands firm wherever he is placed. Standing firm does not mean being rigid, it means choosing to be present and unshaken in the space you occupy. This is why the smallest habits matter. The way you enter a room, the pace of your walk, the way you take your seat. These are not meaningless gestures, they are declarations. I once met a craftsman in a small coastal town. His shop was no larger than a stall, the wood worn smooth by years of work. Yet, whenever he stepped into the town square, people noticed. He would walk slowly, acknowledging those he passed with a nod or a steady look. When he spoke, his voice was calm, his eyes fixed fully on the person before him. A younger man once asked him why he carried himself this way. The craftsman replied, "Because even if the world owns my work, it will never own my posture." That sentence stayed with me. It was the essence of self-possession, the understanding that while much can be taken from you, your manner of being is yours to guard. Eye contact is part of this silent language. It is not about staring others down, nor avoiding their eyes out of fear. It is about anchoring the present moment between you and another person. Epictetus taught that no one can truly harm your mind unless you hand it over to them. Meeting someone's gaze steadily, without aggression, without flinching, is one way of showing that you have not surrendered yourself. Think of a captain in a storm. His crew does not look to him for constant reassurance in words. They watch his face, his posture, the steadiness of his movements. If his gaze is calm, if his frame remains composed, they know he has not lost command. In every conversation, in every encounter, you have the chance to offer that same assurance to others and to yourself. But let us be honest, there will be days when you feel anything but steady. Days when you would rather shrink into yourself, avoid every eye, make yourself invisible. The Stoics would say that these are the days when posture is most important. When the internal storm rages, it is the deliberate act of standing straight, of walking with measured pace, that reminds you of who you are striving to be. You are not pretending, you are practicing. Body language is not about claiming territory like an animal marking its ground. It is about occupying the space you already belong to, without apology. Walk into a room as if you have every right to be there, not with bluster, not with a demand for attention, but with the quiet conviction that your worth does not need defending. When you sit, do so with ease, back straight, shoulders relaxed, hands at rest. These are signals, both to the world and to your own mind, that you are settled in yourself. I recall a winter evening in a small cafe. The rain was steady, the air thick with the smell of coffee and damp coats. An elderly man entered, his coat worn, his shoes carrying the marks of many miles. He set down his umbrella, straightened his coat, and paused for a moment as if to greet the day itself. He caught the barista's eye, offered a faint smile, and made his way to a table in the corner. He did not seek to command the room, yet somehow he did. People glanced his way, not out of curiosity, but out of respect. His presence was not loud, it was undeniable. This is the paradox the Stoics understood. You do not win attention by chasing it. You earn it by embodying the steadiness you wish to live by. When your posture is rooted in self-command, when your gaze meets the world without fear or need, you draw others without trying. It is the same irony Seneca spoke of when he wrote that those who seek applause most earn it least, while those who stand apart from it often receive it unasked. So train your body to speak the language of your mind's discipline. Let your walk, your stance, your gaze be the outward signs of an inward order. And remember, this is not mastered in a day. Like all Stoic practice, it is forged in repetition, in choosing again and again to carry yourself as the person you are becoming, not the person your doubts would have you be. The next time you step into a room, think not of how to impress, but of how to be fully present. Let your movements be slow enough to show you are not rushed by fear, steady enough to show you are not pushed by pride. Let your eyes meet those before you with neither challenge nor avoidance, but with the simple truth. I see you, and I am here. In that moment, you will have said more than words could hold. And once you have learned to let your body speak this language, to let it declare your steadiness, your presence, your self-command, the next step is to give that presence a voice. A voice that carries the same calm authority, the same unshakable ground. That is where we will go next. 2. A calm and confident voice. Have you ever watched a room fall quiet, not because someone shouted for attention, but because a single voice spoke with such calm certainty that no one wanted to miss a word? In a world where most people speak faster than they think, where noise competes with noise and everyone rushes to fill the silence, a measured, grounded voice is rare. It carries an authority you cannot fake, and the Stoics knew this well. Seneca once said, "The greatest remedy for anger is delay." That delay, the deliberate slowing of your words, is the same discipline that gives a voice its weight. Your voice is more than sound. It is a bridge between your inner state and the outer world. Before anyone judges your arguments or your opinions, they are already responding to the way you speak. If your tone is rushed, it tells them you are afraid the moment will slip away. If your voice is steady, it tells them you own the moment completely. When you speak as someone who can command attention at will, you don't need to grab for it before it's gone. You know it will come back to you whenever you choose. Picture a seasoned general on the morning of battle. The camp is tense, soldiers pacing and adjusting their armor, waiting for orders. He does not rush into speech. He steps forward, takes in the faces before him, and lets the silence linger just long enough to draw everyone's focus. When he speaks, each word is placed like a stone, deliberate and unshakable. There is no strain in his voice, no urgency, because urgency would betray fear. Instead, his calm steadiness becomes their anchor. By the time his orders are given, the soldiers are not just ready to fight, they are ready to follow. I once knew a merchant in a bustling market who never raised his voice above a conversational tone. The stalls around him were full of sellers calling out, competing to be heard. He did the opposite. Customers had to step closer to hear him, and in doing so, they stepped into his space, into his pace. His calm was magnetic. "If I rush my words," he told me, "I make my goods seem as though I'm desperate to be rid of them. If I speak slowly, I make them seem worth holding on to." The Stoics would say, your voice is a reflection of your discipline. Epictetus advised, first learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. A hurried voice often reveals a hurried mind. A calm voice shows that you've already weighed your thoughts before giving them form. This is not performance, it is the natural sound of self-governance. Clarity is the companion of calm. A still voice without clarity is like a tranquil lake clouded with mud. You can feel its calm, but you can't see its depth. Clarity means stripping away the unnecessary, speaking in terms so clean that there is no room for confusion. When calm and clarity meet, your words don't just land, they stay. They are remembered. There will be times when you are ignored or spoken over, when the room favors the loudest voice rather than the truest one. In those moments, the untrained grow louder, desperate to be noticed. But the disciplined remain still, knowing that their time to speak will come. And when it does, it will cut through the noise without force. Restraint is not weakness. It is a choice to let your presence speak before your words do. I recall a meeting in a small coastal town where tempers were high. Dozens of voices clashed, each trying to overpower the other. At the edge of the room, an old fisherman sat in silence, hands folded. For nearly an hour he said nothing, watching the arguments circle. Then, when the noise had spent itself, he began to speak. His tone was even, his pace slow, each word delivered with care. In less than 2 minutes, the room had gone silent. He had not demanded their attention. He had earned it by making them want to hear him. This is the paradox of a calm and confident voice. It does not seek attention, but it commands it. It does not rush to fill the air, but it owns the silence. In a time where speed and volume dominate, stillness and measure stand out. People instinctively lean in toward steadiness because steadiness feels safe. The skill is built in small ways, in how you answer questions, in the pauses you allow between ideas, in the courage to let a silence stretch just long enough for your words to settle. Every conversation becomes practice for the moments when you most need your voice to carry weight. Marcus Aurelius urged himself to be like the rock against which the waves break, unmoved, and the raging of the sea still falls around it. Your voice can be that rock. When others rush, you remain grounded. When others shout, you speak with composure. When others fill every gap with noise, you let the gap speak for you. This discipline also reshapes how people see you. A voice that is calm yet firm signals that you are not a slave to urgency or emotion. It tells the world that you think before you act, that you trust yourself enough to be heard without competing for space. That is a form of respect you cannot buy and cannot fake. It must be lived into existence. So the next time you speak, ask yourself, am I scattering words like leaves in the wind, or am I placing them like stones in a path? Am I speaking because I fear the silence, or am I letting the silence strengthen my words? Choose the latter, and you will find that your voice will not just be heard, it will be remembered. And if these principles resonate with you, let your own voice be part of this conversation. Type a single word, steady, in the comments to remind yourself of the power you want to carry. If you find value in mastering this art of presence, subscribe so we can keep walking this path together. Once your voice carries that quiet authority, the next step is to ensure that your emotions do not betray it, because even the calmest tone will falter if the heart behind it is unsteady. That is the discipline we turn to next. 3. Control your emotions. Have you ever felt your pulse quicken before a single word leaves your lips? A tightness in your chest, a rush in your head, the unmistakable surge of feeling that seems to seize your body before you've even had the chance to think. It might come in the form of anger at a slight you didn't expect, fear at news you weren't ready to hear, or sadness that catches you off guard. In that instant, you stand at a fork in the road. Let the emotion drive your next action, or take the reins before the horse bolts. The Stoics understood this crossroads well. They did not pretend emotions could be erased. They acknowledged them as part of our nature, but they also knew that nature had given us something greater, the power to choose our response. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily, you have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength. In other words, you cannot stop the wind from blowing, but you can choose how to set your sails. Control over your emotions does not mean becoming a stone. You can be compassionate without being consumed, passionate without being reckless, joyful without being naive. What it does mean is that you refuse to be a passenger when your emotions grab the wheel. You decide when to accelerate, when to brake, when to turn, and sometimes when to stop altogether. Imagine a Roman commander on the eve of battle. The enemy has grown bolder. Scouts report numbers larger than anticipated. The men under his watch shift uneasily, casting glances at their leader. If his face betrays fear, if his voice trembles, their courage will fracture. But he stands still, absorbing the news with the same steady breath he takes at dawn. He looks out at his soldiers, not to mirror their anxiety, but to replace it. When he finally speaks, his words are calm, deliberate, and clear. He tells them what needs to be done and nothing more. That composure is not born of ignorance. He knows the stakes, but from a choice to master himself before attempting to lead others. I once knew a man named Elias who faced a personal tragedy so sharp it could have swallowed him whole. He lost his home in a fire one night, watching as the roof caved in and the walls collapsed into embers. The next morning, while the smoke still clung to his clothes, he arrived at his workshop on time and completed every task that awaited him. To an outsider, it might have looked like indifference, but I learned later that Elias wept privately that night, mourning what was gone. The next day, however, he refused to bring that grief into his work. "The fire took my house," he told me, "but it didn't earn the right to take my hands too." This is the heart of emotional control, not denying what you feel, but refusing to let it spill into places where it does not belong. Seneca warned, "He who suffers before it is necessary suffers more than necessary." So much of our turmoil comes not from what happens, but from what we add to it. We rehearse future disasters in our minds, amplifying our fear before the moment arrives. Or we replay past wounds until they bleed again, long after the blade has been removed. The Stoic practice of controlling emotions begins here. Stop feeding the fire. Feel the heat, yes, but do not fan it into an inferno. Think of a sailor in a storm. The waves crash, the deck sways, and the wind howls like a beast. His first instinct might be to shout orders frantically, to wrestle the wheel in every direction. But a seasoned captain knows that panic wastes strength. He keeps his hands steady, his voice even, steering with small adjustments until the ship rides the waves instead of fighting them. That captain may feel fear, but he will not let fear dictate his course. The sea will do what the sea will do. His job is to decide what the ship will do. In our modern lives, the storms are often invisible. An unexpected email, a sudden loss, a betrayal you never saw coming. The principle remains the same. You cannot choose the winds, but you can choose your course. When emotions surge, step back into the role of the captain. Breathe, observe. Ask yourself, if I act now, will I be proud of this choice tomorrow, or will I be cleaning up the wreckage of my reaction? Epictetus taught his students to rehearse adversity in their minds, not to invite misery, but to prepare their hearts. If you have already pictured losing something, you will not cling to it as desperately. If you have imagined insults, you will not be shaken when they come. This preparation is not pessimism, it is armor. The soldier who trains in the rain will not falter when the battlefield is wet. One of the greatest challenges is keeping the walls between your inner and outer life intact. A personal blow can spill into your professional duties. Stress from work can poison your home. Emotional control is the gatekeeper at those walls. It does not deny that both worlds matter. It simply ensures that one is not destroyed by the problems of the other. Let me tell you about Helena, a shipwright in a bustling port city. Her livelihood depended on contracts with wealthy merchants, and one day a major client accused her of fraud publicly in the market square. She could have shouted back, defended herself with anger, and satisfied her pride. Instead, she listened, waited for him to finish, and replied with a single sentence, "Meet me tomorrow in my workshop, and I will show you every ledger." She returned to her work without another word. The next day, the merchant arrived, reviewed her records, and left in silence. The public humiliation she could have suffered was avoided because she refused to answer emotion with emotion. That is the Stoic way, to meet insult with clarity, loss with resolve, and fear with steady breath. You may feel the sting, you are human, but you do not let the sting choose your next step. In our age of instant reaction, this discipline is rare. The world rewards speed, not thoughtfulness, outrage, not restraint. Social media is a marketplace of unchecked emotions, where the loudest reaction often drowns out the wisest response. But in such a place, emotional control becomes even more powerful. When you do not rush to respond, when you speak only after you have considered, you stand out like a lighthouse in a sea of flashing lights. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Emotional control is the companion to that rule. It gives you the space to see what is right and true before you act. It shields you from the trap of winning the moment, but losing your self-respect. So the next time a wave of emotion rises within you, do not try to push it away immediately. Acknowledge it, name it, then ask, does this serve me or does it chain me? If it serves you, like righteous anger against injustice, channel it deliberately. If it chains you like bitterness or envy, release it before it takes root. Remember, control over your emotions is not a gift you wait to receive. It is a skill forged in small moments, strengthened in trials, and carried into every challenge. The one who can master himself in the quiet will master himself in the storm. And when you have learned to keep your emotions under your command, you will find it far easier to stand your ground, not out of stubbornness, but from the quiet certainty that no gust of feeling can uproot you. That is the path we will walk next. 4. Stand your ground. Have you ever been in a moment where the easiest choice was to bend, to nod along when you disagreed, to stay silent when you had something to say, to go along with the tide because it felt safer than swimming against it? Perhaps you walked away, wondering why you had given up that ground so quickly. The Stoics would tell you, each time you surrender your ground without reason, you surrender a piece of yourself. And a man who gives away too much of himself will soon find there is nothing left to stand on. Standing your ground is not about being unyielding for the sake of pride. It is about knowing the principles you live by, the decisions you have made, and the weight you are willing to carry for them. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." When you have acted in accordance with what is right and true, you do not need the world's approval to confirm it. You can accept the outcome, whether praise or blame, without flinching. In the marketplace of ancient Athens, there was a craftsman accused of cheating his customers. He knew the charge was false, yet the rumor spread quickly. Friends urged him to make a public defense, to shout over the gossip until it died down. Instead, he kept to his work. When asked why he remained silent, he said, "I have done nothing wrong. Time will speak louder than I can." Weeks later, the truth emerged, and the same mouths that had accused him now praised his restraint. His ground had been tested, but he had not moved from it, not because he was stubborn, but because he was certain. To stand your ground is to take ownership, not just when you succeed, but also when you fail. The Stoic does not point fingers when plans collapse. He accepts the consequences as the rightful cost of his choice. This is the mark of a man who governs himself. A mistake owned is a lesson gained. A mistake denied is a chain you will drag forever. Seneca advised, "It is better to conquer grief than to deceive it." The same is true of failure. Better to face it than to bury it under excuses. I recall a ship captain whose vessel ran aground in a shallow channel. The crew braced for his anger, expecting him to blame the tide, the maps, or their inattention. But he gathered them on deck and said plainly, "I made the call to take this route. The fault is mine, and so is the duty to set it right." Then he rolled up his sleeves and joined them in the work of freeing the ship. No one questioned his authority after that. His willingness to bear the weight of his own decisions anchored their respect. When you stop chasing approval, something strange happens. People begin to offer it freely. This is the irony the Stoics understood. The less you need the crowd to affirm you, the more the crowd will be drawn to you. A man who stands firmly on his own ground becomes a fixed point in a shifting world, and others gravitate toward that stability. He does not puff up to appear larger. He does not shrink to fit into another's frame. He simply occupies his space fully, without apology. This is not to say you must fight every challenge. Wisdom lies in knowing when to yield without losing yourself. Like a tree in the wind, you can bend without breaking, but you do not uproot at the first sign of a storm. Epictetus taught that the world will test you, sometimes harshly, but your task is to remain as a rock against which the waves break. The rock does not chase the waves, nor does it flee them. It stands where it has always stood. Standing your ground also means not being ruled by the shadows of your past. Regret is a chain that keeps many from moving forward. The Stoic accepts what has been done, the good, the bad, the foolish, as part of the unchangeable past. If there is a lesson to take, he takes it. If there is a wound to heal, he tends it, but he does not drag the corpse of yesterday into the halls of today. When you can laugh at your past without shame, you show that it no longer holds power over you. I once met an old soldier in a quiet port town. He had fought in wars that no one spoke of anymore, and some said he had made costly mistakes. When I asked him how he lived with those memories, he smiled faintly. I did what I thought was right at the time. Sometimes I was wrong. But a man who spends his life hiding from his own footsteps will never walk far. His words were worn smooth by years, but they carried the weight of someone who had long since made peace with his own record. Standing your ground is not a posture you assume in a single dramatic moment. It is a habit built in small acts, speaking the truth even when it's uncomfortable, taking the blame before offering the excuse, holding to your course when you have judged it worthy, and refusing to contort yourself into shapes that win quick approval but cost lasting respect. Each time you do this, you fortify the soil under your feet. And when you pair this firmness with the other disciplines, open body language, a calm voice, mastery over your emotions, you create a presence that is not easily moved or dismissed. You become the person others look to when the ground feels unsteady beneath their own feet. The Stoics would say this is the quiet power of a well-governed life. You do not sway with every gust of opinion, nor do you crumble at the first push of adversity. You hold your place, not out of arrogance, but out of allegiance to the principles that make you who you are. So the next time you feel the pressure to retreat from your own convictions, remember, the ground you are standing on is not just a spot on the earth. It is the sum of every choice, every stand, every truth you have claimed as your own. Guard it well, and you will find that even when the world shifts, you remain exactly where you need to be. And when you can stand firm in who you are, you'll find that respect, trust, and influence come to you without chasing. This is the quiet reward of living by principle. The world begins to recognize what you already know within yourself. Carry this strength forward and let it guide you through every challenge that lies ahead. Conclusion: 4 principles to master any situation. Picture yourself walking into any space, a room full of strangers, a meeting loaded with tension, or a conversation you know will change the course of something important. In that moment, you carry more than just your clothes or your belongings. You carry your presence, and that presence is built on the principles you choose to live by every day. The first, body language, is the silent introduction that speaks before any word leaves your lips. Long before you start talking, the way you stand, the way you move, the way your eyes meet another's already tells a story about who you are. A steady posture, a deliberate step, an unshaken gaze, these are not accidents. They are the outward signs of an inner order you've cultivated. This is your foundation, the first fortress wall that protects your ground. The second, a calm and confident voice, is how you hold the attention you've earned. The Stoics understood that true influence does not come from shouting over the crowd, but from speaking in a way that makes the crowd quiet down to hear you. A voice that is steady and deliberate carries the weight of thought. It tells others you are not in a hurry because you trust yourself enough to be heard without forcing the moment. The third, control over your emotions, is the discipline that keeps both your body language and your voice from betraying you when pressure mounts. Emotions are part of being human, but the Stoics taught that they should serve reason, not rule over it. The one who remains composed when the storm breaks gains a vantage point no frantic mind can match. Clarity, patience, and the ability to act in alignment with your values, even when shaken, are the marks of someone who leads themselves first. Finally, standing your ground is the act of living by what you have judged to be right, without bending for approval or shrinking from judgment. It is owning your choices and their consequences. It is knowing that you do not need to chase respect, because the integrity of your actions will draw it to you naturally. This is not stubbornness, it is allegiance to the principles that define you. These four are not isolated skills. They are links in the same chain. Body language opens the door, your voice holds the space, emotional control guides your decisions, and standing your ground ensures those decisions reflect who you truly are. Remove one, and the whole structure weakens. Practice them together, and you create a presence that does not just survive under pressure, it thrives. When you walk into that next room, face that next challenge, or stand in that next defining moment, remember, your presence is not an accident. It is the sum of what you have built within. Carry it with intention, and no situation will ever feel larger than you. Remember, you can understand these principles in a single day, but living them takes time, patience, and the kind of experience you only gain by stepping into the arena. Theory will point the way, but only practice will carve that presence into you. Each room you walk into, each challenge you face, is another chance to strengthen your stance, steady your voice, master your emotions, and hold your ground. There will be moments when you stumble, when your presence wavers, when you feel the pull to shrink back. That is not failure. That is training. Every setback is a test, and every test is an invitation to rise stronger. The Stoics did not become unshakable by avoiding the storm, but by walking into it until the storm no longer decided who they were. So keep showing up. Keep refining how you carry yourself. When the urge to rush or react takes over, return to these four principles and ask yourself which one you have left unattended. Protect it, strengthen it, and carry it forward. Over time, you will no longer need to force respect. It will come to you naturally, drawn by the steadiness you live every day. If this message resonates, take a moment now to subscribe so we can continue building this discipline together. And in the comments, type "unshaken" to remind yourself of the strength you choose to walk with. Your journey toward mastery is not a race, but each step counts. The next time we meet, we will go deeper into the art of turning presence into influence. Until then, hold your ground, live with intention, and remember that every moment is a chance to practice the person you want to become.